Welcome to another episode of the Journeys of Not So Ordinary People podcast. I'm one of your co-hosts. I'm Dr. Joe Hamlett, and along with me is Dr. Dave Peltz. How are you doing, sir?
Good morning. How you doing today, Dr. Joe?
I'm doing really well. I'm excited to be here. Well, we won't hold you all up. So, again, thanks for tuning in to another episode. If this is your first time, hope you enjoyed the episode. Hope you enjoy the podcast. So, with that, we'll do like we do in our normal fashion. One of us introduces the podcast, and the other one will jump right into the actual episode. So, for this week's episode, we are talking about exploring to learn.
Hmm.
Dr. Dave. So, what are your thoughts on exploring to learn?
I think I need to explore that before I can learn about it. So yeah, exploring to learn. That's an interesting topic. Um, so to me, when I think of exploring to learn, I think about, reading, either physical books or ebooks or articles or blogs or journals or whatever, or watching videos or documentaries or exploring to
Right,
learn, maybe trying something new. Um, maybe there's something you like to do and you just try it a little bit different way to get better.
right,
So that to me is what I think of when we say exploring to learn. It's, be curious, learn about things. I'm not saying watch, you know, some teenagers on a video platform picking their nose. I mean, you could explore that. I'm not sure exactly what you learn from that. Maybe
right,
not to do it.
right,
But I watch a lot of different videos. I watch documentaries. I read. I listen to different podcasts, and it's like just exploring different things, and through that, we can find different things that maybe interest us. Like you and I, we're as technology savvy as we are, we're still learning about new technology, and it's kind of fun to
absolutely.
learn about stuff like that.
Yep,
Or you know riding a bike. Oh, I know how to ride a bike. Well, that's great, but maybe ride someplace you haven't, explore to learn that new path or that new part of your city or town. you know
right,
Explore like I said, different topics. I'm watching things that didn't interest me in the past, just try to be curious to see if there is something in there, and I'm being surprised at how much I am learning about different topics. I'm not an expert in them, but it's definitely piqued my curiosity to try to implement what I've learned in my daily life and in my personal life and professional life. And it's actually kind of fun, and that's kind of the way I take my downtime, if you will, you know.
right. Well, Dave, you brought up a lot of different ways that you can explore to learn, and so what we're in today is probably one of the most accessible environments that we've been in the past. Where what I mean by that is being able to access information at the click of a button, whether
Yeah.
it's on our phones, whether it's on our computers. We can access just about anything out there, which was,
Mhm.
when we grew up, that was not the case. You had the
Yeah, you had to have
library,
it,
you
yeah,
had
library,
textbooks,
physical
newspapers.
encyclopedias.
Right,
Yeah.
right. And it wasn't as much information on television, even. I mean, like
Mhm.
today we have a number of documentaries that you can watch or just anything. We didn't have YouTube. So
Mhm.
so we have, walked into this age of any type of information that you want, it is readily available and
Mhm.
accessible. So much like you, I enjoy just, sometimes going down a rabbit hole of
Yeah.
learning. Because there's, and that's the thing that, and we even touch on this in our podcast on previous episodes, talking about, gathering all this information, but then using the pieces that make sense to you or that fit
Mhm.
whatever you're trying to accomplish. And that's really what it's about is, even with all us researching, me and they were both researching stuff before we got on this particular podcast, because how are we going to become better, or what can help us on our podcast or beyond
Mhm.
that? So that's what we have started enjoying here recently, just how more can we
Yeah.
do things like this along the same line, but in a different form or fashion. So we're excited again about the opportunity to do other things and more things. So we're exploring to learn, and we're being intentional about it. So I think
Yeah.
that's the other thing, because again, you can, like Dave said, you can watch just some random videos out there about a variety of topics. You can scroll your Facebook page or your Twitters or your Instagram accounts, but
You
what
can
we
watch
try to
dogs
do.
chasing a ball all day
Exactly. You
long.
can do all those types of things, and maybe you learn something from that
Yeah.
experience.
Throwing
But
technique, retrieving techniques.
but at the same time, if you get more focused and you type in certain whatever that topic or area that you want to explore, then you're being more intentional about it. Because, like Dave said, you may start out maybe not liking something or really not your cup of tea, but eventually you're like, oh wow, I didn't see it from that perspective, or I learned
Mhm.
something new that now I do appreciate. So again, there's really no excuse for not having being able to find information or
Yeah.
to locate information just about anything that you'd really have interest
Yeah.
in or would like to
Maybe
learn
there's
more
some
about.
things you shouldn't have interest in that,
Right.
certain government agencies might flag you for
Right.
looking at that or being curious about it or, exploring it. So just when you're searching, be careful.
Right. 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 Yep. Yep. That's the
Yeah.
other side of it.
Yeah.
um but yeah,
I
anything.
good.
uh, Go ahead. I was just
Uh,
going to say if you had any other information
yeah. I
in.
mean, when sometimes when I work on my car, I'm like, oh, well, how do I fix this?
Right. Yep.
Because I don't want to necessarily have to take it into a shop every time.
Yep.
And it says, oh, do this. These are the 3 steps. I'm like, oh, that's great. I
Yep.
can do that myself, And then it's like, oh, well, if I can fix that on my car, can I fix this? What
Yep.
about that? What about this? And then it's just, you start chasing these things. And the next thing you know, I'm learning how to repaint my car and what rims look really great on it, And it's like,
Right.
well, that's a little bit too far. That's not what I'm doing right here, right now. I need to get back on track. Cooking is a great resource, to explore if you like to learn how to cook or if you enjoy cooking, which I do, just different ways to cook things. And, it's the same thing. Like, this is going to sound probably geeky, but I'm trying to learn how to make beef jerky.
Oh,
And
okay.
so I looked up some recipes and some of them are really complex. They have like 35 ingredients. And I'm like, I don't have 35 ingredients. I got like
Right, right.
4. And I found one that had those 4 and it told me how to do it. But then I also found a dozen other articles that had the same 4 ingredients and the proportions were different. So then it's like, well, which one do I start with? Make the
Well, and
decision, but
well, and that's why I go back to, I kind of briefly touched on it, that you can find a
oh
ton of
yeah,
information, and it's up to you kind of to decipher that and
yeah,
determine what's best for you. Like you said, there's one that says 35 ingredients and another says 4. Maybe you split it down the middle.
right,
So
yeah.
so I mean, that's the beauty of it, because events ultimately it's going to be yours.
Hmm.
I
Hmm.
mean, yeah, you'll get assistance on where to get started, maybe some initial stuff, but the bottom line is it's going to be yours. And no,
Yeah,
you bring up cooking. I think about my wife, who's a really good cook, and she's got the basic recipes, and then she adds her additional stuff
yeah,
to
yeah.
it, and then it becomes hers. And
Hmm.
so that's what I love about it, because you start with this template, like we always talk about, like even us, with our
Hmm.
journeys, we talk about it being a blueprint or a template.
Hmm.
But then it doesn't become yours until you add your ingredients, until you add your variables, then it becomes yours. So that's the whole beauty of this, that you're not trying to learn exactly how to do something, or
Hmm.
you're hopefully gaining some insight on what you need to start with,
Hmm.
and then you can start to build it up from that. So that's what I love about this. I know there you touched on having videos to show you how to do something very specific, like change something on your car, which, yeah, there might not be much deviation that you could do. I mean, maybe you do use a different type of wrench or something like that,
Or
because you
a
don't have the
hammer,
handy.
because hammers are great at fixing things, right?
Yeah. But so yeah, so you may have to, improvise a little bit in some areas, but for the most part, you're going to get the basic steps
Hmm.
on what you need. And if you don't have the tools, you may have to improvise on what tools you need.
Hmm.
But in that case, you're trying to stick to that routine or whatever that you're watching, so that you
Hmm.
don't mess it up and don't have to end up taking it to the shop because you broke something. So in that case, yeah, I could see that you follow that as close as you can,
Yeah.
uh, um, and not deviate as much.
Hmm.
But still, it's still going to, end result, it's going to be you. It's going to be
Hmm.
yours. So, however it turns out, again, whether you break it beyond repair in your garage and have to have it towed to the
Haven't
shop,
done that before.
right, right. Start with this,
That
five
$30 fix at
dollar
the shop,
exactly.
and I'm trying to do it for five, just cost me 150.
Exactly. So be careful because again, we look at the situations in some of these videos or even articles where they have the perfect garage with all the
Right.
hand tools and everything you need. And you're not set up that way. So you try to go down that path that, well, I'll just make it work or I'll
Right.
improvise. Be careful because
Yeah.
you could, like Dave said, turn a $30 job into $150 job because
Yeah.
you weren't able to complete it the way it appeared in the video or in the article that you read. So,
Some of the other things I like to explore, since we're talking about exploring to learn, is I like, the other day I was looking up food processors. I don't know why. Something random came up and I was like, huh, I wonder what that's like. And then it's like the next thing I do is I start looking at the reviews and then what's the best one out there? What are the top five? And I find different articles and say, okay, well, now these three articles said that these two are the top ones. And it's like
right.
it's just kind of sometimes it's fun, and you learn something. I'll probably never use it, but it's just
Well,
sometimes it's fun to go down those rabbit holes, like
well,
with my granddaughter, what great, outdoor toys for your toddler. And it's like, okay, so I'm looking at that. Oh, here's this one, here's that one, it's like, so now I'm learning what types of outdoor toys
right.
are
Yeah.
good for toddlers and which ones are not. I mean, they'd be good for me, as an adult to play on, but it's like, yeah, that's probably not the best idea for a toddler.
Right. Well, you know what, we talked about all the pluses and benefits of having access to all this information. At the same time, though, it could be a detriment. I mean, you
Mm,
kind of talked about having access to all these comments and all these reviews on this particular item,
mhm.
and then we
Or
have
this
in mind,
company or this
right, and
job
we
or
have in
whatever.
mind, okay, this is the one I want to go with. And then you get negative reviews, and then you're like, oh wow. Then you go down another rabbit hole. Well, let me find some more reviews. So I
Yeah.
think we can also kind of stifle ourselves by having all access to
Mhm.
all these things. I think about back in the day when you were going to go buy something, you just went, you saw it on TV, they had a commercial about it, you ran out there and bought it.
Mhm.
You didn't have access to all these thousands of reviews and
Mhm.
people responses and things like that. It was just you saw it, you went to get it. Now today you rely on other people's reviews, other people's experiences, and sometimes those could be biased. So
Yeah,
I,
I was gonna say, do your due diligence, because the adage that we had when we were growing up is you don't believe everything that's on TV, and now it's you don't believe everything on the internet,
right, right,
because where are who are these sources? Where are they
right,
getting
yeah,
their information from? Are they credible? Is it a 12-year-old just trying to ruin a product's reputation, or
right.
degrade the value of it or something like that? Or is it a kid that's trying to make it seem better than what it is?
So
So
that was kind of where I was going. Just the idea that it could put you at a point where you're like, well, which one is correct? Which one
mhm,
is right? Now where do I go from here? Because I have this in mind. So a lot of times it's just going to be you taking that leap of faith like you
yeah,
did back in the day, and I'm going to get this item. And then if
yeah.
it doesn't work out, then you become an also review on that product as well. Don't buy it because
Yeah,
it's
yeah,
this.
yeah.
So that's one caution I would have, that
Mhm.
sometimes it could get you in a indecision
Yeah.
uh, position where you're like, okay, I have 50% say it's great, 50% say it. So where do I go? So that's the downside to having access to all this
Mhm.
information. You could get information overload, and then
Yeah.
you're stuck. You're like, okay, what do I do now? Because I've got
Yeah.
all this information. So that's one downside to having
Yeah.
access to.
The other type of exploring to learn I like to do is just staying current on things that I enjoy.
Right. Yeah.
Like, I like to research. So what are the latest research techniques? How are they being utilized? What about, techniques in learning and adult learning and
Right.
communicating and business, and it's fun just to keep exploring to learn even more about what I'm already enjoying.
Right.
What has come up new now? How is that new thing doing or not doing, or is there a new computer that's coming out? How is that? Is there a new phone coming out? Well, there's always a new phone coming out, but it's
Right.
always better than the last one. And, so, but it's like, do I really want that, or is it just is it a want or is it a need? Is my old, phone something that's still attached to the wall type thing, and I'm having trouble crossing the street because the cord's too short. So that's kind of a jest on the cords being 30 feet, but you still can't go across the street. So, with
Right.
our cell phones, what is it that we're doing? Communication, is that the best thing to do? What are the greatest techniques in painting or laying tile or, electrical stuff? There's all kinds of ads and different articles and blogs coming up about the new tools that are being developed for the construction industry. And some of them are really impressive, especially with like the 3D printing of houses. You
Right.
know, the the initial cost for the company's high, but then after that, it just the machine does it for the company, and it's like pick your floor plan type of thing, and it'll be done in 3 days.
Right.
So there's all kinds of really neat things happening with technology and in a variety of different industries that, just exploring it can just really pique your interest to want to learn more, and you're doing it deliberately. It's not like you're doing something random. One of
Right.
the other things I like to do is I like to watch a lot of history documentaries about pretty much anything that's out there, different cultures, different countries. And if event A was happening over here, what was happening over in this country at the same time,
Right.
so seeing how things interlock and interweave and influence each other or don't influence each other. So, it's just more about learning to learn and enjoying that process and exploring to learn more.
Well, Dave, we touched a lot on, I think more of the personal
Mhm.
learning aspect. I don't know that I know you talked about industries, but I think it's also important that we also explore to learn in our occupations, in our
Right, yeah.
professions. Again, like back when I was an aircraft mechanic for 20 plus years, even though I'd done the same task for, I could do it in my sleep. I could, get faster and quicker at it
Mhm.
because I could almost like muscle memory.
Mhm.
But to stay proficient, to stay on top of things, it's also important that I continue to read or explore. Okay, what are new techniques and different
Right,
things
right.
like that, to so that I can, again, we talk about this in the past, so that I can stay relevant, that I'm up
Mhm.
on the latest technologies, the latest ways of doing things,
Mhm.
so that I don't become obsolete, or that I stop learning because
Mhm.
I've mastered this task, or these tasks, and I can again do them in my sleep, so I don't need to progress. I don't need to move forward. So I
Mhm.
just again encourage people to continue to explore, to learn even their occupation they've been doing for a lot of years,
Yeah.
because there's always new ways to do things, new technologies, new understanding, just new information out there that wasn't there 10 years ago. So
Yeah.
now
Or
there
even
may be.
5 years ago. I mean, like
Right. Yeah.
certifications are a big thing right
Right.
now. And we have our thoughts on those, and some of them are, so there's some pros and cons to it, but it's like
Right.
a lot of companies are looking for certifications in addition to education, or certifications in addition to experience. And
Right.
some of those certifications are inexpensive and not very time consuming, and others are very expensive and do take several months
Right.
to
Right.
complete. So, when we talk about proficiency in our jobs, that's something that we need to consider. Are we exploring the new the new techniques that are out there to keep us
Right.
at the front line so we don't fade back and become obsolete?
Yeah.
Because it really is, there's so much to learn out there about our current careers. I mean, even if you've just completed exploring, within a few weeks there's going to be something new out there. There's going to be,
Absolutely.
things
Yeah.
are always evolving in this age of information, and it's mind-blowing how much information is out there,
Right.
to learn, and the different techniques to explore. We've both tried things just to try them to see how they'll turn out, see if they turn out, if we get the same results. And sometimes we do, and sometimes we don't. And it's
Right.
just interesting to try, because especially with technology. You and I like to explore technology and tools and tips and that sort of thing. And some of them work great, and some of them work decent, and some of them work
Right.
like, holy cow, ha, ha, ha. We just found this. And at first it's a
Right.
toy that we're playing with, like a cat with a little, yarn ball or something like that. But then the next thing you know, we're turning that yarn ball into a house. And it's like, wow, we've just built something out of something we were
Right.
curious about. And
Yep.
look how cool it is. Look how cool I can, it reminds me of, I'm going to go back when macros were first started coming out for
Right.
Excel.
Yep.
I had a buddy at work, I had a friend at work, and the task would literally take him all week to do. And then
Yep.
he'd wash, rinse, and repeat next week. And then he started exploring macros, and he was able to take that 1 week job into about 2 hours.
Yep.
And it's like, just from some curiosity and exploring. And how cool was that? Because now that opened up the rest of his day to do other things,
Right.
to
Absolutely.
network and explore and to learn new things and take on different responsibilities. And it's great to see someone learn to that level and then it just take a huge step forward, because that little bit of
Right.
learning, consistent, deliberate learning, all of a sudden there's a big jump up and now you're just on your way again. And it's just that to me fascinates me about it. Doesn't matter what line of work you're in, whether it's medical or, industrial or government or whatever, there's always things to explore. And in that exploring, we're gonna we can include process improvement, because if you're
Right.
learning, you're
Absolutely.
improving,
Yep.
improving to do something or not do something or tweaking it to fit your needs a little bit.
Well, and that's why, yeah, I appreciate everything you just said, because I think it really comes down to, opening your mind to the possibilities. Like I
Yeah,
said before,
another one of our episodes. Yeah.
me and Dave were playing around with some tools and things right before we got on here, and that's what we kept just saying. The possibilities are endless with this,
Hmm.
because if you can think it, it can probably do
Yeah.
because you can try and, like I said, some process improvement, maybe figure out, okay, it didn't work that way, but I'll try this. So that's what it really does for you, is turn that 1 week spreadsheet task into a couple hour spreadsheets. Same rules
Hmm.
apply. If you figure out, okay, here's my tools, how can I best use them? How is
Hmm.
this going to help me for my project or whatever I'm trying to improve or to execute? So
Yeah.
that's the excitement for me, is you get introduced to it, then you start thinking of different ways that you can apply
Yeah.
it, that you can use it,
We
and
were
that's what's
talking just before
exciting.
we got online, and the visual that we're gonna give you is we were like two children in a candy store just learning what chocolate tastes like. And oh, there's strawberry, and oh, there's you can mix
Exactly.
chocolate and strawberry
Right.
and
Right.
what's that flavor over there? You can mix chocolate with fruits. Oh my,
Yep.
and we were just like,
Exactly.
ha ha ha. It's
Right.
like, so then we have to kind of rein it back and say, okay, let's come down off of the sugar high and just focus on a few flavors for a little bit, and
Exactly.
and then start experimenting with some of the other flavors that are out
Yeah.
there.
Well, and that is a good caution, because like me and Dave were just like, oh man, so let's try this, and we're like, oh wait a minute, yeah, we could go way down this path, and then we got all these things that could become daunting, and we're like, oh, we can't accomplish all these. So
Like driving a
we're
car. If I can drive this car, that means I
right,
could drive that car and that car and that. Ooh, and that car, I can drive that
right,
one. That one's pretty cool. It's the same sort of principle. Yeah, it's
yeah.
fun.
So you have, yeah, again, yeah. We're open to those possibilities, but at the same time, we have to kind of curb some of
Yeah,
that enthusiasm
yeah,
too,
right.
to make it consumable in
Yeah,
at a normal rate or a normal
yeah,
piece, versus trying to tackle the whole thing. So that
yeah,
as you explore to learn, just again, make sure that you're setting some boundaries for
yeah. Setting
yourself,
some boundaries. Yeah, yeah,
so
yeah.
that you're not going too far down the
Because the
rabbit
next thing
hole.
you know, 8 hours have gone by.
Exactly. And you haven't accomplished anything, because you keep reaching out and learning more and
Yeah,
more.
yeah,
And that's the downside to that too, is then you're like, okay, I did this about 3 hours ago, but now I don't remember how I got there.
yeah,
Or I
yeah,
don't remember what it was. It was so cool,
yeah,
because I started diverting and going down
yeah.
other paths. So that's the challenge. Again, we got so much information out there, things
Mhm,
out there, that it could be daunting and enjoyable at the same time. But I'd say that you maybe regulate yourself on how much
mhm,
time you do that, how far you go. I mean, do
mhm.
you cap it off at, okay, I've got this information, let me maximize this here first,
Hmm.
before I move to the next thing,
Right,
because
right.
you could be, forever reaching
Yeah.
because it's such an abundance, area
Yeah.
or opportunity.
Well, it's
So
like
that,
learning to operate a vehicle. It's like focus on one vehicle. Don't try to learn how to fly a plane, a
right,
helicopter, drive a motorcycle, drive a bicycle, drive a truck, drive a sports car, it's like focus on
right.
one or two things at a time. Don't try to
Yeah.
do everything at once.
Yeah, because again, that could overwhelm you. Then you don't get anything accomplished because you
Hmm.
have so many things on your plate. Kind of, and we talked about this in the past too. Just maybe setting those attainable goals
Hmm.
with whatever this new thing is you learn, and so that you can progress and you can see your results
Yeah.
versus, okay, I've got this long list of stuff. Where do I start? How do I
Yeah.
tackle this?
Here's my bucket list.
Right.
What are my priorities? You
Yeah.
know, and it gets back
So
to prioritizing and being deliberate about that plan that you put in
absolutely.
place and
Yeah.
setting boundaries to your point and setting goals to your point. It's the same sort of principles. You can explore to learn, but you want to set some boundaries. Do you want to,
Right.
are you setting out to learn about how to repair your car, and then you wind up 8 hours later looking at puppies chasing balls,
Right.
or frisbees or whatever? So it's like, set some boundaries. If you find yourself digressing, bring yourself back in.
Right. Yeah. So I think we're coming up close to our time for today's episode. So do you
Mhm.
have any final thoughts about exploring to learn?
The thing that just came to my mind is have fun while you're doing it.
Right. Yeah.
That because if you're enjoying it and you're having fun, that's going to assist you in your learning and your retention about
Yeah.
that particular topic or subject or item, and just have fun with it, just for the third or fourth time, have fun while you're exploring to learn.
Okay. Well, thanks. Yeah. And I think that's very important that if you go into it thinking, oh, I've got to do this, I've got to do that, I've got to gain this. You're right. I think it could be more of a chore rather
Mhm.
than the exploration for fun or the exploration to learn. So, yeah, just keep that in mind that it should be fun, and if it's not fun, then maybe you're exploring the wrong thing.
Topic.
Again, make sure you're kind of aligned with whatever you're trying to
Yeah.
accomplish. Like Dave said, you can start down the path of this really great creativity, and then you get diverted into something else. You're like, how did I get here? So
Hmm.
I think that's important. That's why I think setting boundaries and limiting yourself to certain things, I think, will help with that versus, again, it's so much information out there. We're just like a piece of lint, and there's a vast amount of information and knowledge that's out there. So have fun with your exploring to learn. Just again, make sure that you're not going too far that it turns into a chore to a task. So with that, we do want to thank everybody that's tuned into this episode. I know this was a little bit different, just again because we got excited about what we were doing right before
Yeah.
this. We thought it'd be a great topic to just kind of jump into. But so again, thanks for tuning in to another episode. And if you're getting something out of this, please share with friends and family or people you think might benefit from these different episodes that we talk about, the topics we talk about. And again, if there's things you want us to talk about or discuss, please let us know. Our information will be in the description below. And again, if this is your first time, hopefully you come back or you gain something from this. And there's a whole list of other topics that we've discussed over the past couple of years. So please feel free to start perusing that catalog
Absolutely.
of previous podcasts. So with that, we just want you to continue being your not so ordinary you.